Hello, tribe. It is me again, dropping in here for a quick little live. And today's topic is about you being more than a hairdresser. And I wanted to break down the different skills that is needed for you to accomplish the work that you do every day that has never been told to you, has never been broken down in this way, and has always just been expected of you to meet and perform in a way and make it up as you go along. And there's a whole education and understanding and knowledge bank around all the different aspects that are required for us to actually serve a client professionally, responsibly, and ethically, and to allow a client to come into their transformation, which is what we do with our clients. We help them transform. That's what we are doing. Every single client, no matter how big or small the service is, from a tiny trim to a full complete makeover, we are helping them come into more authentic resonance with themselves. So to do this professionally, there are different skills that are required. Now, the first skill that's required when you're doing this work professionally is your communication skills. Now, communication is something that is studied. There are so many degrees and so much bodies of study around communication that when I got into it, when I left the hairdressing industry and I got into the theory behind everything that I needed to do to understand professionally, I was absolutely blown away with how little I knew. Nothing. I knew absolutely nothing about communication. I knew nothing about the dynamics of communication and how interpersonal dynamics and relational experiences occur, and what is required as a professional to hold space for another person so that they can be validated, they can be seen, they can be heard, and they also can be acknowledged in the transformation process. So the first thing is communication. The second thing is understanding a client's inner state. Now, that is a whole, when a client walks into your salon or your space, and they've walked in, mostly clients walk in with a bag full of emotions, of stories, of thoughts, of sensations. There are so many things going on in your client's life. They might even be on the phone dealing with a work issue at the same time as maybe dealing with, one of their children at school, and so many things are going on at once. And how do you, as a professional, understand how to meet that person based on just a very quick observation of where their energetic body is at, and understand through the non-verbal cues? This is so deep. Just to be a professional, understanding the non-verbal cues that have walked into your space so that you can meet your client in an ethical and consensual way. Now, consent and ethics is not something that's very liberally spoken about in our industry, and consent is actually one of the most important aspects of what it is that we do, and why we need to actually have a consensual agreements drawn up with our clients. And that is, I spoke about trauma in the last video, and trauma is a real thing, guys. It is a real thing. It is created mostly by hairdressers that don't listen and project their idea of what they think the client should wear, without really consenting, getting a consensual agreements drawn up between you and the client, where there's clarity around the communication. And again, accessing and understanding that you have received a consensual agreement or consent from your client based on what you're just about to deliver to them, create for them, is 60% of what it is that we're doing that will make the difference between it being a successful session and a not successful session. And that is, it's based on the client's lens and experience. And we need to remember something. A client is actually coming to a hairdresser to have a physical experience. They're coming to connect. They're coming to be seen, to be heard, and to mostly be reflected, which is why the appointment in the first place was made. So if we're not able to really drop in because we're too busy and our book is too full and we don't have the time to actually really drop in with our clients and deeply listen, because we've got the time to listen, we've got the time to observe the nonverbal cues in our clients and actually start reading in between the lines and clarifying, like opening up the conversation with our clients to clarify exactly what they mean, and not what they mean intellectually. I'm talking about what they mean internally, what's really going on for them. What is it that they're really trying to communicate and relay with you? So it's a really important the communication aspect, the consultation aspect is primarily the most important part of what it is that we do with our clients, is communicating with them. And 98% of what we do is talk and listen to our clients. That is the actual core of our work, is the capacity to be present, the capacity to listen, the capacity to open up, expand, into the nonverbal language, into the nonverbal cues that a client is giving, and expand the context of the conversation, that your client might not even really be aware of what it is they're trying to articulate or express to you. But in your capacity to really listen and to be present, observing the totality, the holisticness of the session, which is observing the totality of your client as a human, a total human, mind, body, spirit that's sitting in front of you, and be able to relay it. Like, as an example, a client's telling you, I feel like I want to go shorter with my hair, but I'm not exactly sure where I want the shortness, but they're touching the top of their head, when they're talking to you, and you're observing this through the mirror. So what's saying to me is that there's something, nonverbal cue communication here. What that's saying to me is that there's something going on, that they want to lighten the top of their hair. So in expansion of your conversation with them, you can say, are you feeling like you want a little bit of lightness taken out of your hair, weight taken out of your hair, because you want to experience lightness on the top of your head? So that's just an example of, expanding into the context of the nonverbal cues, which really starts honing in and refining the process that you're moving through with your clients. And, I'm only just halfway through this conversation, and already you can see how much knowledge that is required in order to move through a session of reflection with a client in a very professional way. It takes many aspects of our capacity to meet transformation in a way that will support our clients even beyond their imagining, even beyond their capacity. And that's okay. That's what we're there for, is like to help them deepen into more of their capacity. So that's just one aspect. And another thing that I wanted to highlight here is that investing in this industry, in this touch industry, is going to be one of the greatest investments you will ever make in your life. And that is because with the direction of AI, and I've said this in many of my videos so far, and this is what the hype is out in the world of business, and what's happening is that because of the exponential growth of AI that's going to take, it's going to sweep through industries like fire next year, and we're really going to see a massive growth happen in technology and in the way that businesses will be run. And the only thing that tech can't touch is the human touch industries, because they haven't actually created a robot to cut people's hair. So if we really pull it back and we refine the human aspect of what is required to be a holistic professional, a holistic craftsperson, and the aspect of, interpersonal awareness, holistic awareness of, the emotional needs of a client's being, the spiritual needs of a client's being, the actual, the totality, the energetic requirements of a client's being and need, to serve a client in a whole way, not just with their hair, but in a whole way. And what I believe through the Evolve lens and through the House of Metamorphosis lens, what I believe is that if we take it up a notch, and that's the reason why I wrote Evolve, if we take it up a notch and we really focus on the parts that we haven't been educated on, that we haven't really taken seriously, then what will happen is doors are going to open up. From my experience of 25 years of transforming clients now, doors have opened up completely in my world with my clients, where I'm not just transforming their hair, I'm actually helping them align and transform and come into their authenticity, their soul, their purpose in this world, which brings out a light in people that every hairdresser is wanting to achieve in their clients. Every hairdresser I know wants, when they've had a great session with a client, it's not because just the hair was great. It was because they really nailed that haircut with that client, and they aligned that client to their truth, to their authenticity, and that client is shining because they've had an experience. Emphasis on the word experience here. They've had an experience of connecting to themselves in a way that no one else, not even a therapist, can do this. Really, not even a therapist, because the therapist is dealing with the mind. And if they're seeing like a transpersonal counselor or they're seeing a psychotherapist, they might be dealing with the holistic element, the totality of their humanness. But in most cases, when people go see a therapist, they're actually it's very intellectualized. So it's not focused on their whole needs. But when a hairdresser is qualified and understands what it takes to unpack a person completely, to expose exactly what the client is trying to articulate, and to really align that client with their totality and their authenticity, what happens is there's an alignment, an attunement that occurs, and it's beyond you and me. It's actually quite divine. It's quite almost godly, I can say, the experience that I've had with multiple clients. It's a godly experience of there's this light that actually just comes into them, and they become a light. They become light. And there's a magic about doing the work that we do and having the knowledge behind what it is that we do that helps this, come into a more progressed, a more expanded version of the work that we do. And, this work is not for everybody. And I just want to highlight here, not everybody wants to align their clients to their soul and bring them into alignment and into attunement. This is very niche. This is for the client. This is for the hairdressers that want to really bring a depth and a substance to their work. They want to do more with their work than just cut someone's hair that's elusive, and it's just exterior for them. But they really want to get into the psyche, and they want to get into to help align a person, because there's no other chair in the world that helps a client align like a hairdresser helps a client align to themselves. And I'm going to keep on harping about this, guys. I'm going to keep on harping about this point. There is no other industry in the world that does what we do. No, clients don't go to anyone else where they're talking, they're sharing, they're being experienced, and they're also being reflected at the same time. There is an element of therapy, and for those of you that are listening to this, you can put your hands up and go, oh yeah, click your fingers and go, yeah, there's an element of therapy, like the understanding of therapy and communication that is needed in order to, there's clients that dump really serious stories onto you, and there's an element of transference that occurs there, but there's also this need for you to not allow that to penetrate you, which is what causes emotional burnout. It's called emotional labor, where you're not just cutting someone's hair, but you're emotionally invested in their well-being. And there are tools that you can learn that help you not protect, but to support you so that you know where the boundary is of where your capacity is in communication around emotional conversations, and what you can hold and what you can't hold. And then you can communicate that professionally to your clients and go, this is the boundary of what I can and what I can't. I am not qualified. I am not a qualified therapist to be able to dive deeply. And that is a very responsible approach to what we're doing, because hairdressers are so used to being dumped on, and they've always thought that being a hairdresser, part of the job description is to listen to your clients. But at what capacity and to what degree do you listen to your clients? To what degree do you sit there and allow conversations and stories and depth and really deep secrets be shared at you, and you're carrying these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 stories potentially a day from different clients. And by the time you get to your end of your day, you're not just physically exhausted and mentally exhausted, you're emotionally exhausted as well. And emotional exhaustion causes the greatest fatigue. It has the biggest wear down on your internal nervous system than than standing on your feet for 8 hours. It really does. It exhausts your nervous system. It actually wears you down, because that kind of emotional carry, that kind of emotional support that you provide your clients is one that is not even given potentially by a therapist. Therapists hold space for a client. They allow a client to divulge what's going on, but there is a professional boundary with what they won't carry any of that, what's shared with them at all. They make it impersonal. Whereas hairdressers, especially empathetic hairdressers, make everything that a client says personal. And for an example, how many of you go home at the end of the day and will share with your loved ones, oh, I had this client today and she's, moving through cancer, or her mother's moving through cancer and she was really in a bad way. And that's actually you taking your client's emotional story home in your body, carrying it emotionally, taking it home and actually sharing confidential. This is another thing about consent and confidentiality. Confidential information that a client shared with you to a loved one. And that was shared with you in absolute, the word I'm looking for, in absolute privacy. There's a privacy that needs to go on, a consensual privacy that needs to go on between you and your client, where that information is not shared. Otherwise, if you are sharing it, that's called gossip. And that's something else that we look at, how gossip really affects our nervous system as well in the evolved curriculum. So I just want to, coming to this little piece here of all I could go on and on and on. I need hours to talk about this stuff, but, I only give myself about 20 minutes to have a conversation with you here. And there's so many different elements. And today I just spoke about communication and the importance of having professional communication skills under your belt. And also what goes on, consensual agreements that need to go on between us and our clients so that trauma is not created in the projected idea of what we have of a client without really listening to them. And they're the two main, topics that I spoke about. What I want to say is if you're really enjoying this content and you're really finding it valuable, please subscribe and share these videos with people that you feel will align with it. It will help get the message out there that you are so much more than a hairdresser. And my focus on really bringing awareness to the more that we are, the more that we do. And this is coming from 25 years of experience being a qualified therapist, also a hairdresser for 40 years, and having moved through the transformation, the personal transformation and my clients' transformation about how to really embrace transformation in our industry and how to flip the lens from it just being about hair to really being about transforming a client from the inside out. So I hope this content has found you well, and I hope you've enjoyed today's conversation. And I so look forward to speaking to you again all in the next talk, whatever that subject's going to be, very soon. Take care.